out of the 27 entries, the unlucky non-qualifier Martin Brundle with the Cosworth-powered Tyrrell. And the big news here so far anyway is that Niki Lauda yesterday announced that at the end of this year he will retire from Grand Prix racing. So Austria's greatest ever Formula One driver having today his last home Grand Prix. But it's his teammate Alain Prost, one of the current two drivers looking set to take the battle for the World Championship all the way to the end of the season, who has taken pole position. Alain Prost then on the pole with the McLaren tag, and he's currently 5 points behind championship leader Alboreto. Alongside him on the front row, a man who always likes this circuit, from the Williams Honda team, Nigel Mansell, the British number 2 for Williams Honda, who started his Grand Prix career here all those years ago with a Lotus. A physically very tough driver, now completely recovered from that very unpleasant accident he had in practice for the French Grand Prix, and unlucky not to be well in the points in the German race 2 weeks ago. On the second row, his best qualifying position for some time, Niki Lauda serving notice that even though he's retiring at the end of the year, he's going to be driving as hard as ever in these final races. And his home Grand Prix clearly very, very important to him. He's only won it once, and that was exactly 12 months ago. And it seems to be Lauda who's had all the bad luck in the McLaren team, all the mechanical failures, while Prost has been scoring the points. Fourth quickest, Keke Rosberg with the Williams Honda. So it's Williams Honda's second and fourth fastest, and that underlines just how competitive these Williams Hondas are becoming. Even though Keke Rosberg has retired from the last two Grand Prix, he seems always to be a front runner while the car is going underneath him. Fifth fastest is the first of the Pirelli runners, Nelson Piquet with the Brabham BMW, and he's a man who's certainly hoping it's not going to rain today. The dry weather Pirelli tyre getting better and better, but Nelson isn't too happy about the wet weather Pirelli tyre at this stage. And Piquet with that splendid win in France, 13 points only in the World Championship, and it hasn't been an easy season for him. Alongside him, the man who was the hero of Nürburgring qualifying when he took his first Grand Prix pole position, Teo Fabi, the Toleman with its Brian Hart engine, gradually getting quicker and quicker, but still to find the real reliability that it needs to be a consistent front runner and a consistent point scorer. So there the front three rows, and as the field go off on their final warm-up lap round this ultra high-speed 3.7 mile circuit, 155 miles an hour average speeds in qualifying, and we've got a change in the Ram Hart team because following Manfred Winkelhock's sad death a week ago in a Canadian sports car race, the Irishman Kenny Atchison has returned to the Ram Hart team. There he is in the green and white Ram Hart partnering Philippe Alliot, and also Piercarlo Ghinzani returns to the Grand Prix circuit. Having left Azella, he has now popped up in the second Toleman. We have two Tolemans and the Dutchman Hugh Brottengatter once again running the Azella. So 26 cars warming their tyres up on this final warm-up, and behind those front three rows we must look back to the 9th position on the grid before we see Michele Alboreto, the current World Championship leader. He had troubles in practice with a new qualifying engine which developed quite an appetite for pistons, so Michele Alboreto down on the 5th row and not too happy about it, and his closest protagonist in the World Championship, Alain Prost, on pole position. Prost and Mansell the front row, Lauda and Rosberg the second row, Piquet and Fabi the third row, then De Angelis in the Lotus and Tombe in the Renault, Alboreto in the Ferrari, and the Alfa Romeo of Riccardo Patrese. In the background, that long downhill curve, the Jochen Rindt curve, ahead of them 52 laps on this superb circuit through the forests and up the hills. Prost so very anxious for World Championship points, but Niki Lauda so very anxious to win his last home Grand Prix. There's a red light, there is the green, the race is on. Oh, and Mansell holding fire, and there's quite a schmozzle in the middle of the grid. A couple of cars have stalled, there's an accident in the middle of the grid, and Niki Lauda is the leader. Alain Prost is second, but Lauda makes a superb start. The rest of the field coming through, but there was quite a pile-up. Three cars are left on the grid. One of them is Berger's Arrows. There it is, one front wheel completely gone, the other front wheel almost off. You can't see, but I can, that the World Championship leader Michele Alboreto is out of his car, and that has a front wheel almost off, and Teo Fabi's car also parked. Meanwhile, the leader, Lauda, Alain Prost in second place, Keke Rosberg up there with him in third place, then quite a gap before we get Patrick Tambay, who's made an incredible start because he was 8th on the grid, and he somehow seems to have come through all that excitement. There is Alboreto's car, parked, Alboreto already disconsolately out of the car and over the pit lane. Niki Lauda, meanwhile, with a lead from Prost, who's being pushed very hard by Rosberg. Tambay is 4th, it's Piquet in 5th place. In 6th place, Patrese. 7th is Stefan Johansson, who is another man who's made a tremendous start because he was 12th on the grid. There's Johansson with Mansell behind him, and we've got a red flag. They are stopping the race. So at the end of this first lap, the organisers have clearly decided that they want to remove the 3 cars that are parked, admittedly, well off the main line on the start-finish straight, but they're deciding to stop it. So the red flag slows everybody down. Berger's Arrows, Alboreto's Ferrari. There is Elio De Angelis, who was also involved but who did get away, and the other car, Teo Fabi's Tolman, all involved. It looked to me as though both the Tolman of Fabi and the Lotus of De Angelis stalled, or at least were very, very slow away. Alboreto tried to go round De Angelis but couldn't get through and hit him, and Berger then tried to go between the 2 stranded cars and damaged all the front of his car, almost taking off both front wheels. So now the race will be restarted, and that means that Alboreto will be able to take a spare car, so we should have a complete 26-car grid forming up once again. Here's Tambay's description of the accident.
Fabi in front of me stalled, and De Angelis on the left-hand side also. I went in between Fabi and De Angelis, and then afterwards I had taken the start. I didn't care what happened behind.
Okay. Well, you see the white Tolman and the black Lotus. There's Tambay going through, and on the right, Alboreto in the red Ferrari trying to go round the Lotus, but he does hit it. Now wait for the unfortunate Berger, who tries to go between the white Tolman and the black Lotus. The gap is too narrow, and he clouts both of them good and hard. Now the result of all of that is that we're going to have the Austrian Grand Prix completely rerun. They ignore that disastrous opening lap. We now have a full 52-lap Grand Prix. All the cars that got through unscathed have been allowed to refuel, to top up their fuel, and there is Alboreto in number 27. He's come out in his spare car, as have De Angelis and Fabi and Berger. And also in a spare car, interestingly enough, pole position man Alain Prost. He wanted to change to his spare car because he wasn't happy with a noisy constant velocity joint in his transmission. Before the start of that race, they wouldn't let him change to his spare car according to the regulations, but he has now had the opportunity to do so. So 5 spare cars. Fabi, in fact, is in Ginzani's car. There we have the red light for the second time. This is the second start. And once again, an incredible start from Rosberg, who goes all the way round his teammate Mansell, but this time Prost gets away okay. It's Prost, Rosberg, then Niki Lauda in 3rd place. The whole field gets cleanly away this time. Into 4th place goes the Brabham of Nelson Piquet, but out in front, it's pole position man Alain Prost, who's made a much better start at his second attempt. Keke Rosberg, a shatteringly good start from the second row. Rosberg is in 2nd place. Niki Lauda is in 3rd place. A battle for 4th already between the Brabham and the Lotus. That's Piquet and Elio De Angelis, who's also doing much better than he did at the end of the first start. Sparks as they go over the bumps. That's from Rosberg's skid plates underneath the Williams Honda. Prost, Rosberg, Lauda, the first 3. Rosberg, the meat in the McLaren sandwich, through the Bosch curve for the first time, on down to the long left-hand panorama curve. That's number 2, Prost. That's number 6, Rosberg, and Rosberg very close indeed on this first lap. He's certainly going for the lead in this race. Lauda 3rd, Piquet 4th, De Angelis 5th, Mansell 6th, Tombe is up in 7th place in the Renault. Not quite as high up as he was before the restart, but he's going well nevertheless. There he is within 8th place. Teo Fabi, the rest of the field streaming through, a twitch there from Stefan Beloff in the only Tyrrell in the race, the Renault-powered Tyrrell, but here is Lauda completing his first lap in 3rd place. The first 3 pulling away, but a great battle for 4th. Piquet, De Angelis, Mansell, Tombe, Fabi, then Alboreto, and the rest of the field. Oh, a twitch there from Lauda. Lauda in his own chicane, the Niki Lauda chicane at the top of the hill on the start of lap 2. Lauda a big sideways moment, and that's lost him some time, and that's allowed the leading pair to get away. Prost still leads. Rosberg on his tail at the Tirol curve and onto the top straight. Rosberg in 2nd place in the Williams Honda, waves from the crowd greet Niki Lauda in 3rd place, and Nelson Piquet leads the pursuit in the battle for 4th, but this is Prost the leader. Rosberg tearing off his visor there, a rip-off visor there going off. That's interesting because already after only 1.5 laps Rosberg must have been having difficulty seeing through his visor. Does that mean that Prost's car is chucking oil out? Whatever the reason, Prost still the leader, Rosberg still tucked in behind him in 2nd place as they go through the 130-mile-an-hour downhill left-hander, the panorama corner. 2 apexes there. There's the 2nd apex over the brow. Twitch from Rosberg, hurling his Williams Honda in pursuit. The showers of sparks once again from the skid plates underneath the Williams Honda. These 2 pulling away through the Jochenried curve down towards the start-finish line to complete 2 laps, and Niki Lauda already being dropped in 3rd place. There they go, the showers of sparks once more. There is Lauda in 3rd place, and we have to wait some time before we get there. The Brabham 4th, the Lotus 5th, the Williams 6th, Tombe 7th, Fabi 8th, 9th is the Ferrari of Alboreto, 10th is Ayrton Senna. Remember, Senna started way down in 14th position on the grid, a very low position for him these days. Ayrton Senna starting to move up through the field as the leaders on their 3rd lap go up the hill towards the Tirol curve once more. Lauda perhaps a little bit closer this time, and in fact the Williams of Rosberg has dropped the leader just a little bit, so the leading trio just a little bit more evenly spaced, but still a long way before we get the 4th place battle, led still by the Brabham of Nelson Piquet. So the 2 McLarens and the faster of the 2 Williams Hondas pulling away in a 3-car battle for the lead. Nelson Piquet leading the pursuit in 4th place. Prost, Rosberg, Lauda, there they go, that leading trio. Over the brow once more, and Prost having to push pretty hard in these early stages because he can't relax at all. Rosberg isn't going to let him. Down through the Jochenried curve again to complete the 3rd lap. There's Lauda, a little twitch as he comes out of that high-speed corner. Over the start-finish line go the 2 leaders. Into the Niki Lauda chicane. Where is Lauda? There he is, a tidier line this time. And just look at this 4th place battle. Piquet, De Angelis, Mansell, Tombe in the Renault, Fabi, Alboreto, Senna in the Lotus. 7 cars, all running closely together, battling over 4th place. The white Brabham leading the black Lotus. Then it's Mansell and Tombe, the 2 cars with yellow on them, with Fabi and the white Tolman, and the red Ferrari of Alboreto ahead of the black Lotus of Senna, all just about as close as they could possibly be in these wonderful 140, 150 mile an hour curves. They're going along the top section now and down towards the Bosch curve, with the Pirelli-shod Brabham ahead. Patrick Tombe still leading the middle gaggle with Ayrton Senna at the tail of this little group. Ayrton Senna running in 10th place. Derek Warwick is 11th in the other Renault, but he's a little bit further back and not quite in contact with this lot. And there is that's the 2nd place Williams Honda, and that seems to be slowing. The Williams Honda in 2nd place of Keke Rosberg slows. There is Niki Lauda storming up as Prost goes away in the lead. Alain Prost goes through the Jochenried curve, but I think Rosberg's in trouble. Out of the Auchenried curve comes Prost. There is Lauda in second place. A great roar from the patriotic Austrian crowd because Keke Rosberg has slowed dramatically. His race in the Williams Honda looks like being a very short one today. And once again, we've got the situation that became so familiar in Grand Prix racing last year. McLaren first, McLaren second. There is the Williams Honda creeping back to the pits. The rest of the field stormed through. Rosberg already undoing his life support system and looking like a man who's on his way to retirement in this race. Niki Lauda following his teammate over the brow, and we've really got nobody else even in contention in this early stage. Nelson Piquet now promoted to third. That wonderful battle is now a battle for third place rather than fourth. There it comes, but they're a long way back. Piquet's Brabham, De Angelis in the Lotus, Mansell in what is now the only surviving Williams Honda in the race, third, fourth and fifth. Patrick Tambay still holding sixth place ahead of Teo Fabi, Michele Alboreto and Ayrton Senna. And Niki Lauda, his McLaren of course proudly carrying number one. He's the reigning world champion, currently in position number two, with the man carrying number two in position number one because Prost leads, Lauda is second. That's the Auchenried curve, that wickedly fast, long downhill right-hander which leads onto the start-finish straight. Little twitch as he comes onto the start-finish straight once again from Lauda. Now, is he going to be able to close on Prost, or is he going to be content to play a waiting game and sit in second place? Lauda in the Niki chicane. There is the third place Brabham. And still, De Angelis, Mansell and Tambay follow through. Lauda up at the top into the Tirol curve. Long, steady, sweeping drift. And up over the brow goes Prost. There you get an idea of the gap between them. We'll get the stopwatch on them, but certainly Lauda not looking close enough at this stage to be able to challenge his teammate, and equally not under any threat at all from third man Nelson Piquet. There is Piquet under lots of threat from Elio De Angelis. Nigel Mansell next, then Patrick Tambay. De Angelis and Mansell pushing Piquet through the downhill Bosch curve, and those three have made a little bit of a break because Patrick Tambay is, if anything, delaying slightly the Fabi, Alboreto, Senna trio who are breathing down his neck. And that's allowed Nigel Mansell to stop worrying about defending and allowing him to attack the Lotus ahead of Elio De Angelis. We've had a great Lotus-Williams battle here before between De Angelis and Keke Rosberg. That was the race which Keke Rosberg so nearly won on the line, but De Angelis took his first Grand Prix victory by a wheel. We often see close and exciting finishes here in the Austrian Grand Prix. We've certainly got a very close battle for third. Up into the Niki Lauda chicane goes that trio, and we've got a change of position there because Teo Fabi has passed Patrick Tambay. Teo Fabi moves up into sixth place now. Fabi is sixth, Tambay back to seventh, Michele Alboreto still in eighth place, Ayrton Senna still ninth. And if you ignore the McLarens out in front, and you can't really do that, but if you forget about them for a moment, you can see a really classic Grand Prix going on with different types of cars all battling together. A Pirelli-shod BMW-powered Brabham, a Goodyear-shod Renault-powered Lotus, and a Goodyear-shod Honda-powered Williams, all running together in this battle for third place. Prost now running almost 5 seconds ahead of Niki Lauda, and a further 14 seconds down from Lauda to Piquet. So the two McLarens comfortably out in front, and Lauda not as close as he would like to be to the leader. There is Fabi, who has dropped Tambay. In fact, I think Tambay himself under threat from the Ferrari of Alboreto, and we're going to have a 4-car battle instead of a 3-car battle, I think, very soon for third place. There's Nigel Mansell clambering over the back of Elio De Angelis in his efforts to try and get through on the inside into the Auchenried curve. It didn't come off. But look, Teo Fabi has indeed caught right up with Nigel Mansell. It's a four-car battle. There's De Angelis, Mansell and Fabi all chasing the Brabham up the hill. Fabi going very strongly indeed, and if anything, Piquet now has dropped the Lotus of De Angelis. Piquet easing away a little bit in third place, and now it's De Angelis pushed by Mansell, who's pushed by Fabi. Those three going through the curving section up towards the Tirol curve. Patrick Tombé's Renault now a respectful distance behind Fabi's Tolman, although he's still 7th, is Tombé, holding off Michele Alboreto, who is 8th, and Ayrton Senna, who is still 9th. So the four-car battle for third place, the two McLarens out in the lead. The battle for 7th place, led by Tombé from Alboreto and Senna. Derek Warwick is in a rather more distant 10th place in the other Renault. He's ahead of Stefan Johansson. But as we speak on the lap chart, Johansson goes ahead of Warwick. Johansson now 10th in his Ferrari. Warwick demoted to 11th. In 12th and 13th place, two more Renault-powered cars. Those are the Ligiers of Andrea de Cesaris and Jacques Lafitte, with Stefan Beloff running in 14th place, another man with a Renault engine. That's, of course, the turbocharged Tyrrell. There's Fabi in the Benetton-sponsored Tolman, on the tail of the ICI Honda Cannon-backed Williams, and they're on the tail of the JPS Lotus. All three of them very close in the Niki Lauda chicane. Nelson Piquet breathing slightly more easily in third place, and there is the leader once more. And as you can see, empty road behind him because Niki Lauda has dropped another half second or so. So Alain Prost now looking a very comfortable leader indeed. Niki Lauda, there he is, coming down through the Bosch curve and on towards the left-hander, which is the Panorama. Niki Lauda being watched by all eyes here, being willed on by the Austrian crowd. Having said that Lauda is willed on by the Austrian crowd, of course we mustn't forget the Italian crowd here, because there are an enormous number of Italians who've driven up over the border, plenty of Italian registered cars in the car parks, and they've all come, of course, to cheer on the Ferraris and to cheer on Alboreto. And Alboreto still looking reasonably good, still looking reasonably reliable, but quite in a different race from the McLarens, and he's still stuck down in that great battle behind Tombé and ahead of Senna. There's Lauda once more in second place. Lauda driving smoothly, keeping now apparently an equidistant cushion from Prost. Prost isn't pulling out any. Lauda isn't closing the gap at all. The two McLaren tags just churning out the laps now. But in case that sounds as though they're just going through a routine, there's no doubt that this race is being run at a tremendous pace. Alain Prost has just posted a new lap record on lap 5, 1 minute 31.241, and that takes a nice chunk off the existing Renault new lap record. Into the pits, meanwhile, we've got Patrick Tombé with a flat tyre. Patrick Tombé's rear tyre completely blown. It's off, the fresh one's on again. That's a great shame for Tombé, who was running very, very strongly in that leading group. And that's promoted Ayrton Senna now to 7th place, because Senna has just passed Michele Alboreto's Ferrari, so Ayrton Senna moving up, and Michele Alboreto still in 8th place. There is Tombé out of the pits once more, a nice quick stop for him, but by our reckoning, that will have dropped Renault number 15 right down the field to about 21st place. There's Piquet, there's De Angelis, Mansell and Fabi, those four still running very, very close together in their battle for third. So 3rd, 4th, 5th and 6th back to Fabi, and in 7th place Ayrton Senna, now with a slightly clearer road in front of him. How long is it going to take Ayrton Senna in Lotus number 12 to close up on that quartet, who are still battling over 3rd place? There's Fabi at the tail of that quartet, and they've got a little bit nearer to Nelson Piquet again. Piquet having pulled out a little bit is now being caught by De Angelis. De Angelis, Mansell and Fabi still running in 4th, 5th and 6th places. The Tolman, of course, also on Pirelli tyres, so Pirelli shod cars currently running in 3rd and 6th places. Piquet's Brabham with those telltale little vortexes of air coming off the rear wing, which we seem to see on several cars this year with the shape of the current rear wings, and the smoke from Fabi. Smoke from Fabi's car there. He still seems to be continuing at undiminished speed, but I wonder if this is an indication of trouble to come for Fabi and his Tolman Hart. Meanwhile, Mansell closing right up on De Angelis' tail as they go through the panorama. There is Piquet, there is De Angelis, Mansell, Fabi still there, and here comes Ayrton Senna. There is Senna, so Senna is closing that gap. He's running ahead of Alboreto. Alboreto still hanging on to Lotus number 12, but Senna really now storming on. Senna, who started in 14th place on the grid, and he's not used to starting that low down, working his way up through the traffic, and once again showing what a very quick and mature driver he is in only his 2nd Grand Prix season. Fabi then at the tail of that little group, and the smoke seems to have stopped at the moment, so whatever that problem is, perhaps it was just a bit of oil blowing out of the breather, but the Tolman still going strongly, still harrying Nigel Mansell's Williams Honda, which in turn is harrying the Elio De Angelis Lotus. And remember, we've lost Keke Rosberg in the faster of the two Williams Hondas, and he has been the only driver throughout this race who's been able to get it onto contention with those two mighty McLarens. Still Alain Prost leads, still Niki Lauda in 2nd place, and the battle for 3rd goes on. Well done. Puffs of flame from the exhausts of Piquet's BMW engine as he goes into the panorama corner which caught out his then teammate Riccardo Patrese a few years back with a tremendous accident which almost put the Brabham into the crowd. This is a very fast circuit, but if you get a wheel on the grass it can get very, very exciting indeed. Yes, the smoke seems to have gone from the back of the Tolman. Out of the Ockenwind curve go Piquet, De Angelis, Mansell and Fabi. And it's always the Brabhams and the Williams that seem to use their skid plates. There you saw a glimpse of Ayrton Senna, who is all the time closing on Fabi. And the gap now from 2nd man Lauda to 3rd man Piquet is over 20 seconds, almost 21 seconds between the slower of the McLarens and the fastest of the rest of the field. Prost a comfortable 7 seconds or so ahead of Niki Lauda. Lauda keeping that gap more or less consistent with, in 3rd place, Nelson Piquet, 21 seconds now behind Niki Lauda. Still De Angelis 4th. Still in 5th place, car number 5, that's Nigel Mansell. Still Teo Fabi is 6th. Still in 7th place, we've got Ayrton Senna ahead of the 8th man, Michele Alboreto. 9th now, Stefan Johansson. Stefan Johansson coming up to 9th place with Derek Warwick 10th. And in 11th place, we've got Jacques Lafitte. They're lapping back markers already. That's Kenny Atchison, the Irishman in the Ram Hart, being lapped by the leader, Alain Prost. There's Niki Lauda. And behind them you saw a glimpse of the Minardi of Martini, which has already also been lapped. Alain Prost perhaps held up just a little bit. The gap now down to 6.1 seconds again between Prost and Lauda. It's always the leader who has to do the hardest job when lapping the back markers, because of course you're the first car to catch them. There comes the battle once more with Piquet, De Angelis, Mansell and the Tolman of Fabi, and still Ayrton Senna isn't quite catching them enough to get onto contention with the Tolman. Ayrton Senna, who so desperately wants to score some championship points. He's led an awful lot of Grand Prix this year. He's only scored points in one, and that was the Portuguese Grand Prix which he dominated. Piquet, De Angelis, Mansell and Farby. Farby in the Tolman, of course, driving the car that Ayrton Senna was driving last year before Senna defected to the Lotus team. We're already getting to that point in the season when the rumours are starting about who's going to drive what next year, and of course the retirement of Niki Lauda has added a further spare seat to everybody's calculations. And the rumours that we're hearing here is that Keke Rosberg will move on from Williams and go to McLaren next year, but they are rumours. Oh, De Cesaris sideways, De Cesaris on the grass, he's going over! Oh, De Cesaris, a major accident! And I think he's all right, he's getting out. Andrea De Cesaris getting out of the wrecked remains of the Ligier Renault number 25. He got it on the grass and completely cartwheeled. He's walking up the bank and miraculously he looks completely unhurt. You can see from the mud on his overalls and indeed on his crash helmet how hard he went into the ground. The marshal's very quick on the scene, the rest of the cars going by, and that car completely wrecked. But happily, Andrea De Cesaris seems to be completely unhurt. He's just surveying the scene. Off comes the crash helmet. Yes, and to the relief of the crowd, cheers and applause for him. He's walking back to the pits, dirty, no doubt battered, but quite unbowed. He got it on the wet grass. The car went sideways, the rear wheel dug in, and it was launched. And I think he's extremely lucky that we had so much rain last night, because this ground is very soft. And although the car loses a wheel and damages itself very severely, it flies up in the air, it comes down but not quite hard on the cockpit area, it rolls over, finally lands on its correct side, and De Cesaris very quickly, completely conscious throughout, very quickly undoes the seat belt and starts to get out. A very, very lucky man indeed. And that, I think, also must give considerable credit to the Ligier chassis, which is obviously very strong to have survived that sort of treatment and still kept its driver completely unhurt. Meanwhile, out in front, as he's been for so long, as he's been indeed since the start of this race, Alain Prost. He's now coming up to lap the two Arrows BMWs of Thierry Boutsen, the Belgian, and Gerhard Berger, the Austrian. They're having a splendid battle of their own, with Berger on his home ground and of course driving the spare car after being involved in that start line accident, very anxious to show well on his home track. Prost then closing on the two Arrows. Ahead of them, Stefan Belloff, the German, in the Renault-powered Tyrrell, also due to be lapped. Oh, a big twitch there from Prost. Prost getting very, very sideways going into the Niki Lauda chicane. Interestingly, just as Niki Lauda did several laps ago. So Prost obviously still driving very, very hard indeed, and knowing that whatever the team orders may be, he may need the championship points more than Niki Lauda at this stage of the season, but he is going to have to keep the pressure on, because this is one race that Niki Lauda would absolutely love to win. Prost lapping Berger there. So Prost between the two Arrows BMWs now. As they go down through the Bosch curve, Berger follows him, and Boutsen and Belloff are ahead of Prost. Prost now going down towards the left-hander, the panorama, just passing the section where De Cesaris came to grief. Closing now on Boutsen and Belloff. Belloff over the brow, Boutsen over the brow, Prost there, not wanting to hurry it, because although he is under pressure from Lauda, he doesn't want to throw it away. Coming now down towards the Jochen-Rindt curve. He's passed Boutsen, but Lauda is very definitely closing. There is Belloff just ahead, and there is Lauda at the back of that little group. Lauda coming up to lap Berger just as Prost laps Beloff. Suddenly the two McLarens are very much closer. Lauda is already past Berger and closing on Boutsen as they work their way through these back markers. Prost was briefly delayed, but I think that Lauda is putting on a real spurt now. Prost clear of the back markers now, on his way up to the Tirol curve. Beloff and Boutsen still have to be lapped by Lauda, but Lauda is definitely closing. Lauda now gets by Boutsen and is on Beloff's tail. Boutsen tucks in behind, hoping to get a little toe which will get him closer to Beloff. Meanwhile, Prost is away from this group, but Lauda has definitely closed. There you see the gap at the end of the previous lap, 3.5 seconds. I think it's getting closer than that now. Lauda is already past Beloff, so there's now clear road between Lauda and Prost, and now Niki Lauda is starting to make a spurt. And we said earlier, team orders or no team orders, we have no way of knowing exactly what Ron Dennis has told his two drivers before this race. But Alain Prost is desperate for championship points to go to the top of the championship table. Niki Lauda knows that he's in his last ever Austrian Grand Prix. That is, if he sticks to his second attempt to retire. And Niki Lauda will want to win this race more than any other race this year. Now another car's been lapped, that's Martini's Minardi. Another car has been lapped anyway by Prost, and there's another car to be lapped by Lauda. Always this traffic to contend with, and that can be a problem on these long, fast curves. But as Prost moves away, so does Lauda go storming past the Minardi before the Tirol curve. And that gap is certainly less than 3.5 seconds now. We wonder if Prost is in some sort of trouble, because Prost would certainly not want Lauda to close on him at this rate. Both drivers opted to start on fairly soft tyres. I believe, in fact, Lauda started on a softer rubber compound than did Prost, and it may be that both of these cars are intending to make a tyre stop. Certainly we can see from our commentary position that the McLaren mechanics have got the tyres ready in their appointed places. So perhaps we're going to get a tyre stop for one or even both McLarens. That's Fabi's Tolman that they're lapping there. Teo Fabi, who was going so well in the early stages, has slowed right down. He had dropped to 9th place, but he's a lot further down than that, and he's going very slowly indeed. But look at these two McLarens running very, very close indeed now. Prost and Lauda, with Lauda clearly the pacemaker at this point. Niki Lauda with the tantalising prospect of the leader of the Austrian Grand Prix, of his Austrian Grand Prix, just a few lengths ahead of him, 27 laps left to go, and Lauda closing all the time on Alain Prost. Still Nelson Piquet in this distant third place. He's still holding off Nigel Mansell, who is 4th now, ahead of Elio De Angelis, and in 6th place it's Ayrton Senna. Michele Alboreto is 7th. There into the pits is Teo Fabi in the Tolman, so that explains why he was going so slowly. He was on his way to a pit stop, but Alboreto, as we were saying, in 7th place, so Alboreto still out of the championship points at this stage of the race anyway, and he is running ahead of his own teammate Stefan Johansson, who's caught up with him for 8th place. Derek Warwick is still 9th, and we've now got Mark Sura in the other Brabham, 10th, Mark Sura having just overtaken Jacques Lafitte. And great waves from the crowd. That of course means they're cheering on Niki Lauda, and even the Italians, I think, support Niki Lauda over Alain Prost. Niki Lauda, who did win 2 world championships for their beloved Ferrari team, and Niki Lauda on his home ground, closing all the time, and Prost's coming in. Prost in the pits. Alain Prost comes into the pits. Now, is this a problem? Is it a tyre stop? Alain Prost is in the pits, and they're ready with tyres. The watch starts. Alain Prost getting a fresh set of rubber. This is interesting because Prost, as I told you, did actually start on a slightly harder rubber compound than did Lauda. 11.4 seconds, the car is stationary. It's away on fresh rubber. Prost back into the race. He's going to come out still in second place because that's the Tyrrell going by there of Stefan Beloff. Prost on his fresh tyres. He's going to have to warm them up. So he's going to have to be a little bit cautious for the first half lap, but he's come out in second place. Niki Lauda leads the Austrian Grand Prix, and Prost is now running in second place on fresh rubber, with Nelson Piquet in a very distant third. But behind Piquet we've got a new fourth man, because there is Nigel Mansell's Williams Honda parked by the side of the road, smoking gently. Mansell out of the car and walking back to the pits, and here's Piquet! Nelson Piquet coming into the pits. We've lost the fourth place man, we've now got the third place man in the pits. So suddenly the whole complexion of this race changes. Niki Lauda the new leader, Alain Prost in second place on fresh tyres. They're changing Piquet's tyres, but Piquet is talking to Gordon Murray, and I think it's worse than just a tyre change. The car off the jacks, but it's been stationary now for 20 seconds, and I think that Piquet's trouble is more serious. Yes, Nelson Piquet out of the car. So it's all changed at the front. Elio De Angelis has also had a tyre stop. There he is, about to be lapped by the leader Niki Lauda. So we've lost from the third place battle Piquet and Mansell, and we had a delay for Elio De Angelis, and all of that has promoted Ayrton Senna, the man who started 14th, into third place. Ayrton Senna is now third. Michele Alboreto, the World Championship leader, is now fourth. Stefan Johansson is fifth, and the lapped Elio De Angelis is now running in sixth place. Marc Surer we've got in seventh place in the now only remaining Brabham in the race. The only Ligier left in the race, that of Jacques Lafitte, is currently eighth. And Patrick Tambay, who you'll remember had that pit stop much earlier on when his left-hand rear tyre had completely exploded, he has reappeared on the lap charts, having done a jolly good job working his way back after that delay, and he is currently in ninth place. And a new fastest lap for Alain Prost. Now I suppose that shouldn't be a surprise, because he's got fresh rubber. This late in the race, of course, there's a much less fuel load on board these cars, but Niki Lauda is certainly now being caught by Alain Prost. The gap between Prost and Lauda after that pit stop for Prost, we make 29.7 seconds on the lap after it happened, but it's now coming down very rapidly, and I make it about 17 seconds now. Certainly Prost is closing on Lauda by at least a second a lap, and Niki Lauda hasn't made a tyre stop. We still don't know whether he's planning to do so. They've got the tyres ready in the McLaren pit, but Niki Lauda seems to be intent on making his tyres last the whole distance. Now that's going to be the sort of balancing act that Niki Lauda seems to specialise in. He's got to drive slowly enough to preserve his tyres. Remember, he started on softer rubber than did Alain Prost. And there is Ayrton Senna now in third place. There's our third man, Ayrton Senna. But Lauda has this balancing act. He's got to drive fast enough to keep Prost behind. He's got to drive slowly enough to maintain his rubber. Ayrton Senna in third place with 18 laps to go. Behind him, Patrick Tambay in the Renault that he's just lapped. We've incidentally lost the other Renault of Derek Warwick in a puff of black oily smoke from the back some laps ago now. There is Michele Alboreto, there behind him the other Ferrari of Stefan Johansson, and even if Stefan Johansson could close on and pass Michele Alboreto, I'm jolly sure he wouldn't be allowed to, because of course Michele Alboreto is the current World Championship leader. 5 points between him and Prost at the start of this race, and of course Prost is ahead of him on the road. So Stefan Johansson immediately following his team lead around. Still McLaren's 1 and 2, Lotus 3, Ferraris 4 and 5, Lotus 6, and that's Berger, that's the Austrian Berger, who's coming to a halt just by where the Williams of Nigel Mansell is parked. Berger, who'd been having a tremendous battle with his own teammate Thierry Boutsen and had in fact got past him, but he seems to have shot his bolt. His race seems to be run. There is Boutsen. Oh, and a puff of smoke there from Lauda. Lauda slowing! Niki Lauda slows. That's the Minardi also slowing in clouds of smoke. But Niki Lauda is slowing down. The race leader has come to a halt just past the pits. He's getting out of the car. What tragic luck for Niki Lauda as Alain Prost goes past to take the lead up the hill. Niki Lauda is out of his car, and Niki Lauda is out of the race. His dream of winning his last Austrian Grand Prix is over. We saw the telltale puff of smoke from the McLaren as he came through the Jochen-Rindt curve. There the McLaren pit crew with their tyres still ready, but Niki Lauda didn't need them, and sadly Niki Lauda out of the race. McLaren still leads, but I'm sure everyone is disappointed to know that Niki Lauda isn't going to win his home Grand Prix. Ron Dennis on the left, monitoring the race, and a red and white McLaren still leads, but this time it is again number 2, Alain Prost, on his fresh tyres. All he now has to do is reel off these laps, because the second placed man, Ayrton Senna, is a long, long way back. The departure of Lauda has of course promoted the 2 Ferraris to 3rd and 4th places. Alboreto now 3rd, Stefan Johansson now 4th. In 5th place we've got Elio De Angelis in the Lotus. Mark Sura is now 6th in the Brabham, with 7th man Jacques Lafitte, 8th man Patrick Tambay, 9th man Thierry Boutsen, and 10th Stefan Beloff. So Prost, over the start-finish line, glances across at the pit signals, settling down for a relaxed drive towards the flag. Relaxed perhaps hardly the right word, because you don't relax when you've got a Grand Prix to win, but at least Prost knows that his task is now very, very much easier, and I'm sure the arguments will go on for a very long time as to whether Prost would have caught Lauda, and if he had, whether Lauda would have allowed him to go past. Ayrton Senna over the brow, a splendid performance from him to have come up into 2nd place. And remember, he's retired, or at least had problems, in every single race this year except one. We're now at the 10th round, and Ayrton Senna must be hoping against hope that his luck will hold out for this Austrian Grand Prix. Ayrton Senna through the Niki Lauda chicane. Only 12 cars still running of the original 25 starters of the rerun, because of course Skinzani didn't start in the Tolman. It was Fabi who took over his car. 12 cars still running, and the 12th is, surprisingly, the Minardi of Martini, which we saw enveloped in clouds of smoke some laps back. The smoke, in fact, was rubber smoke, because the rear bodywork had come adrift and was rubbing against the tyres. He's been into the pits to have all that sorted out, and he's still going. Meanwhile, Ayrton Senna through the long downhill right-hander, the Bosch curver, and there you see the extent of Prost's lead after 41 laps, 48 seconds ahead of Ayrton Senna, with Alboreto some 7 seconds down on Senna, and Stefan Johansson obediently following in Alboreto's wheel tracks. So Senna, as he there laps the Ligier of Jacques Lafitte, Senna can't really relax, because the points-hungry Alboreto in 3rd place is only about 7 seconds behind. Senna in the Jochen-Rindt curve, on over the start-finish line. The Ferraris still 3rd and 4th, and Senna's teammate Elio De Angelis still running in 5th place. So both Lotuses, both Ferraris running in the first 6. One McLaren left in the race, and it's the one that's leading. There he is, Alain Prost. Prost, who has won more Grand Prix than anybody else this year already, and if you include the unhappy Imola race, the San Marino Grand Prix, which Prost won only to be disqualified for his car being underweight, then you'll know that Prost has really got 4 victories under his belt, even though only 3 of them have scored points for him. There the two Ferraris with the Ligier of Lafitte between them, Alboreto in third place, Stefan Johansson in fourth place. That's the Bosch Curva, that long downhill right-hander. Alboreto, the third place man. Once again, the Ferraris reliable, even though they haven't quite had the speed of the quickest cars. Puff of smoke there, that's from the Toleman of Teo Fabi, who spent a long time in the pits, but has come out again to try to finish the race, but it looks as though even that is going to be denied for Teo Fabi. He went so strongly in the early stages, he's now going very slowly indeed. Teo Fabi, puffs of smoke, there's Stefan Johansson, the Swede who's already had 2 second places for Ferrari this year and who so nearly won the San Marino Grand Prix at Imola, only for his car to die almost within sight of the finish flag. So Ferrari's third and fourth is some sort of recompense for all those Italians who've come so far to see the prancing horse running here. And of course, if the order remains the same until the end of this race, with Alboreto third and Prost leading, there's Lafitte in the pits. Oh, and flames from the exhaust pipes. That's Jacques Lafitte. He's getting fresh tyres, but there's a lot of smoke from the back of the car. Jacques Lafitte, who's had 2 splendid third places recently. Lafitte is still in the pits. There's Prost going on his triumphant way, but as I was just saying, if the order remains the same, with Prost leading and Alboreto in third place, then we're going to end this race with Prost and Alboreto neck and neck in the World Championship. Prost on his way, unless cruel luck strikes this late in the race, to 9 championship points. Alboreto equally on his way to 4. The distance between Prost and Senna, almost 43 seconds. Ayrton Senna comfortably ahead of Michele Alboreto, who seems to have resigned himself to third place. So the two of them are going to be level pegging in the championship at the end of this race. There is Patrick Tambay on his way. Tambay smoking a bit too, a little bit of smoke from Tombay's car as Alboreto goes round the outside at the Jochen-Rindt Curve. Tambay, I think, struggling a little bit, trying to nurse his car on to the end of this race. Oh, and Tambay not leaving Stefan Johansson very much room there, but Johansson goes through. A little wave, I don't know if it was an excuse me or a thank you or a do you mind from Stefan Johansson, but there's real smoke from Tambay now. Tombay's car is going, Tombay's car has blown great plumes of smoke from the back of the Renault. What a shame. Tombay's race surely is run, although he seems to be continuing at undiminished speed. He's spun on his own oil. Tambay spins and there's flames and oil and everything from the back of that car. Tambay spins. Clearly his engine was blown, but he wanted to keep going to the end. He's worked so hard in this race. He's had a puncture. He's come back up the field. He was running in 8th place, only for his engine to blow. He's spun harmlessly on his own oil. The fire extinguishers put out the fire, and Tambay stands on the left of the picture, taking off his crash helmet. Another hard day's work done for Patrick Tambay and Renault. Both Renaults now out of the race. Derek Warwick having stopped quite a long time earlier. The car's going through the smoke, and that's Thierry Boutsen slowing now. In these closing stages, the Austrian Grand Prix taking its toll as Alain Prost goes on his way. Thierry Boutsen had slowed right down in the remaining arrows in the race, Berger having already retired, but through the Bosch Curva goes Alain Prost, apparently no problems for him. Still Ayrton Senna second. Still the Ferraris third and fourth for Alboreto and Stefan Johansson. Still Elio De Angelis in the other Lotus in 5th place, with Mark Sura in the Brabham in 6th. That's the panorama. You can see the rubber on the road. It's remained dry mercifully all race, and it's been pretty warm and muggy, and a lot of tyre wear, a lot of rubber on the track now, as Alain Prost reels off the closing laps. This is 51 laps completed, so starting his final lap, Alain Prost the leader. That's Teo Fabi walking home having finally called it a day with Tolman number 19. But this, on his final lap, is Alain Prost of France in the McLaren number 2, on his way to what will be his 4th Grand Prix victory of 1985. Up the hill to the Tirol curve for the last time. That's the right-hander where Patrick Tambay spun so dramatically just a few laps ago. They've removed the car but not the marks of fire extinguisher on the road. There on the right is the Minardi. Pierluigi Martini has finally called it a day also. So as the remaining few cars seem to drop out like flies, the one reliable McLaren in this race reels off his final lap. This is the Bosch Curva. Out of the Bosch Curva, on down the short straight, past the gouge marks by the side of the road, which were made by Andrea de Cesaris in that dramatic accident, and we have confirmation incidentally that he was completely unhurt. Then the panorama, the double downhill left-hander, over the brow, down to the Jochenrit Curva. There, the final corner in sight for Alain Prost. Another Grand Prix victory is going to be his. Out of the Jochenrit Curve he goes. The checkered flag awaits. Here comes Alain Prost to score another Grand Prix victory and to go to the head of the World Championship table. Now, will Alboreto get his 3rd place to maintain his position at the top of the table? There is Ayrton Senna, who scores his first championship points ever since Portugal. He is going to finish 2nd. There is Alboreto, who's going to finish 3rd. Jochenrit Curve for the last time for Ayrton Senna. So Ayrton Senna does get 2nd place. He does get 6 championship points and not very far behind Michele Alboreto, who kept trying all the way to the end. Alboreto gets his 4 points to hold what is now a joint World Championship lead. Stefan Johansson finishes 4th. Elio De Angelis will get 5th place for Lotus, and 6th, a lap behind, is Mark Surer, scoring 1 championship point with the Brabham. Beloff gets 7th place with the Tyrrell, Boutsen is 8th for Arrows, and Rottengatter 9th with the Azella. So the Austrian Grand Prix that had 2 starts ends with both Prost and Alboreto scoring points in their spare cars. Prost the winner.
Well, and a fantastic win. In your pit stop, did you ever think you were going to get the lead back again, or could you have caught Lauda?
I think so. I was waiting for the right moment because my tires were fresh, and I knew that Nicky could not be as quick than he was until the end, and my car was much better at the end.
Starting in the spare car like that must have been very difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult because I did not know if I start in the race car and the T car, and the car was the T car was not as good on my race car, as you can understand. I have changed my mind about the tires just before start. It was very difficult psychologically, but I won, and it's most important.
And what about the World Championship now? Earlier this week you said you wanted to go ahead in points. Well, you're tied with Alboreto, but you must be happy with your position.
I'm happy because the car is fantastic at the moment. It's much better than the others, especially during the race. Nicky is very unlucky, but I think he should win some races until the end of the season, or maybe finish behind me and get some points from Alboreto. And I'm in a much better shape now.
It's unbelievable that you can win in either your race car or your spare car. It's a real endorsement to the team and the whole effort.
Yes, it's very good. That's the force of the team and the power of the team, and I'm very happy about that. I'm very happy. I'm even more happy winning in the T car, especially for the team, for the mechanics.
So, a very happy Alain Prost, Michele Alboreto and Alain Prost jointly at the head of the Drivers' World Championship with 50 points each, and their nearest challenger, Elio De Angelis, is 22 points further down, and it really is looking as though the battle is between the two of them, and it looks as though it's going to go all the way to the end of the season. Stefan Johansson 4th, Rosberg 5th, and Ayrton Senna appearing in 6th place. In the Constructors' Championship, Ferrari still lead, but McLaren are moving closer in 2nd place. Lotus are 3rd, and Williams-Honda, despite scoring no points today, 4th. And in the crowded month of August, there's another Grand Prix just a week away. That's the Dutch Grand Prix at Zandvoort. We'll be there.